Welcome to Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions to help animals. I'm here today with a wonderful guest and an incredible organization that helps cats, the Stray Cat Alliance in Los Angeles. I'm here with Christy Metropole. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you.
I just find what you do incredible. I know that I believe in my heart of hearts that cats are the #1 domesticated animals, or the feral cats animals, that are unwanted, unknown about, left out. They're that population that people just don't understand, because there's feral cats and there's the kitty cats we have at home. And your group helps both.
Absolutely.
Because the main issue is an overwhelming population.
Right.
So tell me more about Stray Cat Alliance, how it started and how you got involved.
Stray Cat Alliance started in 1999 when I found a kitten and I couldn't find anybody to help me trap her. And I went around and I called organizations, and I had to go to one organization to get one trap and another organization to get another trap. And finally I got a trap, and I trapped her and I started taming her. Her name is Chloe, in my bathroom. And there was no information, and I didn't know where she came from, and it was really difficult. And right after that I got another call that my roommate had a secretary, and she said, well, there's a ton of kittens in her backyard. And I went, and there were about 30 kittens and maybe about 20 adult cats breeding out of control. And again, I had to go get traps at certain places and find spay-neuter funds, and it was so difficult. And I'm tenacious, and I'll get the job done. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if I started an organization that helped people do this so that they would do it? And I just intuitively knew that this was a huge, secretive, underground problem that nobody talked about, but that was happening. And if people were empowered in their communities to do the right thing, they would, or most of them would. And little did I know what I started when I started.
What a troublemaker you were.
I am a troublemaker. And if I had to redo it again, I don't know if I would, but I'm glad I did.
Well, a good troublemaker, an important leader. I mean, that's really the thing. You saw the issue, you saw the problem, and you took initiative.
Right.
Now, this Chloe, you said,
yes,
was the first one. Did Chloe end up being a pet?
Yes. Chloe is my cat. She's still with me. And I tamed her, and it was very difficult to get people to give me information on how to do it, but I did. And now she's completely tame. And I just realized that it was so important for kittens, I believe, to get off the streets, to be spayed and neutered, and obviously for the adults. And I also learned through my 9-10 years doing this specific work, I love cats, but I really love all animals. I love anyone who doesn't have a voice. So that includes children, that includes people who are oppressed. But the reason that I chose to help cats was because this was such a fixable problem. It was so doable, and no one at that point, TNR, Alley Cat Allies hadn't really come into their own. I didn't know what TNR was. I just knew that if people started trapping and fixing cats, that a lot of cats' lives would be saved. And I also learned that the feral cat population and the domestic cat population are the same population. And I learned through talking to people and learning people in the animal rights and animal welfare movement that they thought that feral cats were these wild, separate population, and they're out there, and there's many organizations that wouldn't fund their spay and neuter because they didn't think that they had value, their lives had value, because they weren't owned by somebody. And of course, I don't care if a cat is owned by a human being. The cat has a right to live and free from harm and with love and respect and dignity. So I realized that a lot of people didn't know that the feral cat population and the domestic cat population are one and the same. And it is the example of a friendly cat can be abandoned. She can have her litter of kittens. Her kittens are now feral. She's tame. Her kittens get taken. They become tamed. And now they're in the domestic cat population. And that cycle is something that was very hard for people to understand, that feral cats are not different from, our little foo-foo in the house. They're the same. And I think that plight, now people are starting to realize that all cats need to be helped.
Right.
And there's no difference.
And there is no difference, but the thing is that There are some that will permanently stay feral because they've lived a life in a certain situation. You have to address those in a different way
Yes.
than ones that can be taken out. I know myself, yourself, many people pick up kittens, whatever, tame them down, get them homes. They do become fluffy in the house for the permanent part of their life. But at any point, if they get dumped again, there is an instinctual part of a cat, most of the time, I think, that will try to survive, or is that a fallacy as well, too?
I think I think it's a fallacy that if you dump your cat, they'll be fine. I think a lot of cats die on the street.
Right.
They do starve to death. We talked about declawed cats are dumped all the time. They can't climb a tree or get away from a dog. And cats cannot live on rats and mice. They're not that wild, although they can kill them. And they really need a mother to teach them about hunting, and they need a mother to teach them about predators. But I think it is also important to understand that you can, dump your cat on the street and they can survive, and you're right. They will revert, a lot of them, back to being feral, and you can't touch them. And some won't. And we don't know why that happens. But there are cats who were born in the wild and who have grown up in the wild, and it's probably not the best idea to try to domesticate them. It's best to respect their wildness and their feralness, just as long as they're, we believe, spayed and neutered, fed, and watched medically, because they aren't a squirrel or a raccoon.
They're not considered wildlife, then?
I do not believe feral cats are wildlife.
Okay.
I think they live in a gray zone. And so they need our humane intervention. They need to be fed, they need to be spayed and neutered, and they need to be watched medically if they get hit by a car. They will suffer if we don't do that. And I think it's very important that we know that they're not wildlife completely.
So they don't have the same oversight entities such as wildlife protection agencies or whatever that oversee wildlife. The cats, like you said, are in the gray zone, so truly, who looks after them other than groups like yourself? Right, and that's
most of the wildlife governmental agencies don't look after wildlife. They usually trap them and kill them. But they do have protection, and some of them do, and that's important. But you're right, feral cats are in the gray zone because they're not part of a home or a family, so called, and they're not wildlife, and they live in that gray zone where they're not watched out. And many people assume when they see a cat roaming around the streets, and I used to assume this too, that that cat belongs to somebody. Oh, that cat must be getting fed. Oh, that cat must be fixed. And I would encourage people to not assume that. That cat could be recently dumped. That cat could be completely feral and just had a litter of kittens. That cat could be injured, need flea treatment, you name it. So don't assume when you see a stray that cat is being taken care of.
So how many cats would you say, or colonies or groups of animals do you say your group right now is responsible for or can help or helps on an annual basis?
Well, we get between 300 and 400 calls and emails per month.
Wow.
Yeah, and each one of those calls entails many, many cats. So we'll help the cats in many ways, and the most powerful thing we do is we actually call people back. Because many groups, not because they're bad, but because they're overwhelmed with calls and animals, they can't call people back. Our main focus is empowering the individual to take action, but how can they take action? Like me, 10 years ago, fumbling around, it was very difficult. So we have hotline staff that just answer calls and answer emails. I personally answer a lot of emails. And we empower people with information on should they take action, how they need to take action, do they need to get traps, what trap depot. We have 7 trap depots in Southern California, and we're continually growing. At those trap depots, people are taught how to trap, how to be safe. They get vet information, they get funding. We have free spay and neuter events almost every month or every other month to get people, geared up to go trapping and do that big spay neuter. We cover it all, and we actually personally, the organization fixed 1,422 cats last year. That was just fixing.
Wow.
We also helped we figured about 15,000 cats just on our emails and calls every year.
Amazing.
And that continually grows every year. And those people who are empowered, now they can go out and teach someone to take action. And that's what's going to happen, because we, as a nation, the consciousness is to move towards no kill. Not everybody knows what that means, and not everybody understands that, but I know what it means, and I understand what no kill means. And I'm very, very much a believer that it will happen, that we have to stand firm and stand tall. And the only way we will ever get to no kill or even low kill is if our communities embrace trap, neuter, return. And that means going out proactively, trapping cats, fixing them, watching the colonies. 80% of kittens that go into the shelters are born of feral mothers. The Los Angeles Services said that they killed 7,000 neonatal kittens in the year 2005, I believe. Those were the numbers. Can you imagine? Those are all feral mothers. If they were trapped and spayed and neutered, those 7,000 kittens wouldn't have been killed.
And you were saying also that the cats are the #1 population of animals that are brought into the shelters.
That's right.
And the #1 population that are euthanized.
That's right.
And if you're just doing this program called Trap, Neuter, Return effectively, or even semi-effectively, meaning there's more areas in town besides just your 7 and the many others that have theirs out there, that you could really see a decrease, because those are tax dollars that are saved by not having these animals coming into the shelters, not having to deal with any medical conditions, not having, all the other issues that go along administratively with taking in thousands of extra animals a year.
That's right.
So you're looking at a way to effectuate major change, not only for the animals, but for the city of Los Angeles or the city of whatever that this is occurring in.
Absolutely.
Now, this being that they know that cats are the #1 animals that are coming in, is there more of an aggressive policy? We're talking here in Los Angeles, but when you're looking at nationwide, are they looking at more and more incorporating trap, neuter, and return to cities as a policy, as opposed to we might let this happen or whatever?
Right.
It used to be you had to keep colonies secret.
Right.
You couldn't let people know where you were taking animals, because they'd say, oh, this is a blight in the neighborhood, we're going to get rid of it or whatever. What do you see?
Well, I see that it's going to be a slow process, and there are cities that are starting to embrace TNR, and there's just a new statistic that came out. We knew for a long time, the California state did a budget. For every $1 that is spent on fixing an animal, $10 is spent on impounding, housing, and killing and disposing of that animal. Now, a new study came out saying that it's actually way more expensive than that. For every $1 spent on spay and neuter, $18.22 is saved for the taxpayers.
Right.
And also, having feral cats in the shelter is very stressful on the cats. It's stressful on the workers. It's expensive. It's time-consuming. It's dangerous for all concerned. So that is really important. Do I see cities around the country embracing TNR? I do. I see when there's big fights like in Wisconsin, people backed off. There's big fights in Torrance. Now Torrance is going to adopt TNR officially. It's an amazing thing where people showed up, and the commission in Torrance said that they have never in history seen as many people show up to a commission meeting about any other issue. So when you upset feral cat people, we really are united. Even if we have differences personally, we'll show up and we'll fight for the cats, because the cats have no voice. So it is important to understand that if the feral and stray population is spayed and neutered, very few kittens will be born. Those that are born and they end up at the shelter will get homes, because they'll go to those homes spayed and neutered, and they won't keep breeding and keeping the cycle going. It'll also be when they've shown statistics, when there's less kittens in a shelter and people want to adopt, they'll adopt the 1 and 2 and 3-year-old cats. They'll adopt the 5-year-old cats.
Right.
So now those cats who are not feral, who have always been domestic, but who ended up, unfortunately, at the pound, now they have a chance to get a home. So it's good for everyone. And TNR has a ripple effect. It's keeping cats out of the shelter, because, and I tell people this, if they say, well, I'm just going to bring the cat to the shelter because they say they'll find it a home, well, they probably displaced another cat that they had to kill. And so I tell people that's never a good idea.
Right.
It really isn't. And in our state right now, how we are doing it right now. And it's just really important to know that TNR has this ripple effect, and that will save taxpayers money and will save many, many lives.
As far as the effect of spaying one cat, I know I've heard lots of different statistics on if you spay one cat, she has this many litters, and this is what can be the effect. In generality, how does it really make a difference fixing a female cat?
We basically believe the average stray cat has 2 litters a year with 4 surviving kittens. That's about average. And if half of those kittens are female, they will breed. And they, in turn, we did the math, and it's about 5,000 cats after the second year when they grow up and start breeding for that one mother and her babies. And so it's really, every cat does count. And when people say, oh, I'm just going to let my cat have kittens, I want my children to see the miracle of birth. I actually told a mother once when she told me that, I said, well, then you need to show them the miracle of death at the pound.
Exactly.
Because that's what you're doing. You are letting this cat breed her one litter. That doesn't mean that those kittens grow up and the homes you find, maybe that family was going to go to the pound and save a life. And now they're not, and now they have an unfixed animal. And that animal will breed. So it's very important that if parents want to show their children the miracle of life, then they need to show their children the miracle of death in the pound.
As far as education, how important is that in your organization, and what do you do to go out to the community to educate about this blight?
That is a great question, because I think it's, especially with feral cats, it's all about awareness building, advocacy, and education. Our hotline gets so many calls. It's very burdensome and tiring, and not everybody who calls us likes the cats.
Right.
People call us and say, get rid of them, and we do our best to troubleshoot. Really, almost any situation can be handled if the person is at all reasonable. When we explain that once a colony is spayed and neutered, all the howling and the spraying and the new kittens is gone. People are blown away when they'll let us fix the colony, or they'll get involved. We really want them to be involved. And once everyone's fixed, they're blown away at how the problems cease. There's problems of, the smell in the ground. We give them products. There's neighbors who don't like the cats. We've actually bought scarecrows, which you can buy on Amazon. It's water motion, detector, so the cat walks on the lawn and the water goes off, the cat leaves. Right. There's sprays. There's many things you can do. There's a lot of troubleshooting that we do with the public constantly, ideas, and people go out and they take our advice and they save lives. But yet, had we not given them that advice, they didn't know to do that.
Now, where did you get all this information? Was it you spearheading this with your organization, finding it, or with your core of volunteers? Were you able to put things together? How do people go about finding this information? Just first go to your website,
yes,
and then all your important links are there. I mean, I read much of the information there, right, and it is voluminous when you go to all the different bits of information you can go to, but there's, like you said, I guess training and different things that you can have so you get the hands-on as well.
Well, when somebody goes to one of our trap depots, we actually teach them how to trap. We're standing there and we're teaching them how to set it and cover the cage and where to put the bait and what to do and what not to do. So that's really important. But when people email us with a specific situation, we give them specific advice, and that's from me, that's from the volunteers, that's from smarter people who've gone before me, putting things together, and we just try to get all the information and give it to the person. When the people are hostile and they don't like the cats is when we try to bring other people in, other trappers. We're not big on relocating colonies. It's problematic in many ways, but we have done it. There are times when a building is being torn down, or there are certain things. People call us and just think, oh, I have these 10 cats in my backyard. Can we just find like a park? They think there's this miracle park in the sky where the cats are going to go and live this wonderful life, and we give them the reality that there isn't that and that they're there for a reason. The amazing thing is the vacuum effect, and I think that's one of the greatest pieces of information that people don't understand. When companies call us and say, well, we just want them gone, we say, well, they're there for a reason. They've come there for a reason. They're getting food. If you start trapping and taking cats out, you're probably not going to get everyone, because really they're not as good trappers as us. They're not tenacious. They don't have as many traps. They don't know how to do it. And you're going to create a vacuum, and what you're going to do is now have a colony of breeding cats, of cats who are coming into the colony from all over the place, because a male will travel, I think, 5 to 10 miles a day when he's, has breeding females around. So he's going to go everywhere. And the females are going to attract males from all over the place. And now you're going to have all these litters, and you're going to have cats breeding out of control. If we go in and do TNR, cats are now spayed and neutered. They are very territorial, so they'll keep other cats out. And now you have control of the colony. You have great mousers. We'll make a time where they're only fed once a day in a certain location, so you have control. We'll put flea meds on them, and there's so many solutions. And we've had many, many successes with many, many institutions that are blown away at, once everyone's trapped and fixed, how the problems have subsided.
Tell me a little bit more about yourself. Why do you do what you do? How do you have the drive? Has it been a passion your whole life? Besides Chloe,
right.
What drove you to even help her?
As a kid, I loved animals. As a kid, I loved horses, and I loved dogs and cats, and I was just, I think, born compassionate for them and born with a love of them. My family, my whole mom and her side are amazing cat people. My grandfather adopted a cat in the 60s from a rescue. I mean, who was rescuing in the 60s?
Wow. And
she was like the love of his life. And so I think I have it in my blood. And I'm just passionate about things. And I really wish I knew exactly why I started a cat organization. I couldn't even tell you, except I knew that it was something that I could do and I could make a difference. And I didn't at that time see anybody doing it. Mm-hmm. And I saw a lot of people into dogs and maybe domesticated cats, but I just saw the strays, and they just didn't have any system, and I wanted to create a system.
So if people want to emulate your system, they can go to Stray Cat Alliance, find out more about that system.
Absolutely.
In other parts of the country.
Absolutely.
And do this. But they have to also have someone like yourself or some people like yourself that have that drive. I mean, it does take some tenacity, but you are a businesswoman, mm-hmm. and there's other people that may be retired, maybe in business. It takes a certain type of person to say, I want to effectuate change.
Yes.
That's what I happen to see in all the times I speak to rescuers. There's something within you that says, I know I can make a difference. What could you say to people right now to help encourage them to know that they can make that difference?
You know, people will say to me and to other people who actually do things, oh, you're so wonderful. I love what you do. I could never do it. And I say, yes, you could. Yes, you could. All you do is make a decision that, yes, maybe you're not going to buy that extra fancy car, or maybe you're not going to go on that trip, or there are absolutely sacrifices that I've sacrificed hugely to do this. But I've also gained in so many ways that I could never repay the universe for the gratitude I have for what I've done. So I think it's a decision that you make, that you just do it. You become a doer, and you don't become a talker, and you don't become a, I wish I could. You just become a doer. There's also people who say, oh, that's what you do, trying to put it off on us. And I say, no, that's what we choose to do. And you can choose it too. And I think that's really important for people to know. It's just a choice. And the world needs more help in many ways. And cats need a lot of help. There's a lot of cats out there who need people's help.
So the first place they need to go is your website.
Absolutely.
What is your website?
www.straycatalliance.org.
All right, so they can go to this website. They'll find information on, I know I took some information down on how to trap,
mm-hmm.
the care for the colony,
mm-hmm.
feral cat health. But if they also are having to deal with something regarding their regular domesticated animals, or they see some domesticated animals, they can go to your website as well,
Absolutely.
correct?
Absolutely.
And then you do different events that help out during the year.
Yes.
That you do spay and neuter events. You do different things like that where people can see you and find you at different locations. And I assume also in other towns across the country, there are groups out there that are trying to get this information out.
Absolutely.
And that's the most important thing, I think, is education and information and empowerment of people in the community. I know myself, I'm going to my neighborhood community to ask for some funding and different things to help with ferals, but I know aligning with you, why reinvent the wheel? You're able to go to somebody that does it effectively, and I'm sure the people that watch the show or hear it can say, you know what, I can contact them. Maybe I'm that person now. Maybe it's the time that I can donate, and it doesn't have to be a tremendous amount of time if they don't want. They can determine what amount. So you do need volunteers, and
Absolutely.
as far as funding, you do need that as well.
Absolutely.
Yes, and,
Yeah.
and you're able to wrap that up and take it with you anytime in any place and say, you know, we'll take it to this project and we'll take it to that project.
Yeah.
And I bet you're growing, as you said. You're growing all the time. And so there really is a need right now for people to support what you do and be out there and say, you know what, this is the place that I need it. I know in my community, that's what I get the calls most about, are feral cats. I do end up catching dogs, but it's really the feral cats.
It is, and a lot of dog rescuers will say, oh, there's a feral colony over there, but I'm a dog rescuer. I don't do that. And my response to them is, well, you might not do that, except now it's in your world, and I'm going to empower you to do that because there's too many feral cat situations for us to take care of. It
Right.
takes everybody, at least in your world, if it's where you work, if it's in your backyard, if it's in your neighborhood, at least in your world, take care of those one or two that you can. I'm not saying everyone has to do what I do, or there's many people in my organization who do that. That's really important. It takes everyone. We can't fix the problem
Right.
ourselves.
Thank you so much. Thank you for joining us here on Critter Crusades, the show about ordinary people on extraordinary missions. Go out and do TNR in your neighborhood and get involved. Thank you.